Welcome to the podcast where relationships, confidence, and determination all converge into an amazing, heartfelt experience. This is Speaking from the Heart.
Welcome back to episode number 148 of Speaking from the Heart. Today, we have Julie Thomas joining us, and Julie lives in the Twin Cities of Minnesota with her husband, 3-year-old daughter, and a fur baby. She taught 7th grade English language arts for 16 years and saw herself retiring from this amazing profession. But 10 years ago, she, along with her husband, invested in an Airbnb, loved it, and invested in 4 more and never looked back. Now they have both quote-unquote retired from their 9-to-5 jobs and are working full-time in that industry to expand their business. And I have to say, this is one of those episodes that when you think about it, there is a lot of hard work, but the hard work doesn't necessarily come from a passive income, just like renting out Airbnbs, but learning that you can enjoy life and reclaim your time to do other opportunities can all start with a crazy idea, an investment, if you will, of a place that maybe other people might not normally think about, but go into it, never looking back. And that's exactly what Julie's story is all about. But I have to understand that there's a little bit of being risk averse, which we talk a lot about in this episode today, and why it's really important for us to keep the eye on the prize, what it means to keep moving forward. Because it isn't just about building a lifestyle that you want. It's really about building a lifestyle that you can continuously work on, because it still takes a lot of hard work, perseverance, and determination to keep on pushing that needle forward, especially in the things that we try to do. I think that Julie's story today really exemplifies how you can go from a 9-to-5 to something that you enjoy, regardless of what you're doing. But you also have to realize that there's still a commitment of resources, and even when you think that you learned it all, there's always going to be surprises around every corner. But with that, let's go to the episode. All right, we're here with Julie Thomas. Julie, thanks for sharing your heart with us today.
Thanks so much for having me on your podcast. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. You're one of the special people in my heart that reached out to me out of the blue and said, I listened to one of your podcast episodes. I would love to be on your show and talk about my story. And when you shared with me what you were all about, I was excited. So I'm really excited about this interview today. Julie, I already let the audience know a little bit about you and your background. So I have to ask, you had a very cushy career as being a teacher, and yet you took a risk and started your own business. Tell me how you even got into teaching first, and then what was that decision, that light bulb moment for you that made you decide that you wanted to go into doing what you do?
Well, I have known since I was in 5th grade that I wanted to become a teacher. I had an amazing 5th grade teacher who just loved all of us for exactly who we are, who we were. She was able to teach us content that I would have struggled with in prior years. And she was really my source of inspiration for what a good teacher could look like. And obviously, I think all of us can think of those teachers that are amazing that we've had. And I think all of us can think of at least one teacher that we had where it was like, probably should have left the profession a long time ago. But I started teaching in 2007. And I actually ended up teaching in a district where my husband had graduated, and I replaced his 7th grade English language arts teacher when she retired. And I was in the exact classroom that he was in as a little tiny 7th grader. And it was really cool. It's a super small district. And I taught 7th grade English language arts. And I was there for 16 years. And I love everything about education. And I love everything about teaching middle schoolers. None of us would go back to being middle schoolers. It's a very awkward time in life. You're figuring yourself out. You're navigating how you fit into your family structure, how you fit into your friend group. And I loved seeing it as a teacher and really taking a lot of kids under my wing and getting to know them and supporting them for who they are. And I had amazing, amazing experiences. I actually ended up co-teaching a class with my best friend. And I had the most amazing district, which I know is the reason that I made it past the typical dropout mark of 3 years for most teachers. So I had this incredible career of 16 years, but 10 years ago, my husband and I were interested in having some supplemental income. We wanted to travel. Travel was really our passion. We had done a lot of road trips in college. We did a lot of road trips when we were first married, but we wanted increased income in order to be able to afford travel. You described my career as being cushy, and there's not a lot that's cushy about a teacher's paycheck. And so we were bringing in enough money. We could pay the bills.
I have to interrupt and say the only reason I say that is sometimes the teachers' pensions can be pretty lucrative. And that's just where I'm coming from in Pennsylvania. So I don't know how it is where you're from, but I know at least in Pennsylvania is pretty nice. So I have to caveat as to why I said that.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. If you get to retirement, your pension is pretty great. Along the way, I would say relative to other careers, you're definitely not top of the salary structure, but we wanted to get some increased income to be able to afford traveling. And we had rented cabins out in West Yellowstone, Montana for years and years and years to snowmobile with friends. And we got this crazy idea of, well, what if we scraped together some money for a down payment and bought our own property and rented it? It would pay for itself, and then we could stay there for free. And so, believe it or not, we had no idea what we were doing, but we did it anyways. And we found our first investment property out in West Yellowstone, Montana, and started renting it. It did really, really well. Income started flowing into the bank, and we had money for the first time to go on these big adventures that we had dreamed about for years, but never really thought were going to come to fruition. Fast forward to last year, and we had scaled our Airbnb business to owning 6 homes and managing them ourselves. And I was teaching full time. My husband was in investments full time. And I had a daughter that was born in 2020. And it just wasn't sustainable anymore. I felt like I never wanted to be one of those teachers that wasn't giving 100% to my students. And I knew that if there came a day where I couldn't give them 100% anymore, for whatever reason that was, that I was going to exit education, because it truly is one of those jobs that you have to give 100% of your heart and soul to make those connections and really be the teacher, in my opinion, that you should be. And so when I began to recognize that this side hustle that we had grown into more than a side hustle, it was starting to consume too much of my energy. My husband and I started having conversations about where it is that we wanted to go and what we needed to do and the changes that we needed to make. And unfortunately, that meant that I made the decision to step away from teaching, which was exciting, but also heartbreaking. So last June was my last month in the classroom after 16 years. And now I'm on this journey in entrepreneurship.
Does it feel risky, or do you feel a sense some days of uncertainty about your business and maybe making the right decision of leaving the teaching career? Because I will tell you, I still work a full-time job even as I continue to build out my own coaching business. And I sometimes have this doubt of, am I really going to make it? But things always seem to happen for a reason. So I'm wondering if things have happened for a reason for you, Julie, and even your husband for that matter.
Yeah, I would say I feel the risk and the doubt maybe every other hour.
Well, that's a typical small business owner, so good job.
If I would be absolutely lying if I said that I wasn't on this crazy roller coaster of emotions by the hour, sometimes by the minute. When I first left teaching in June, it was actually what got me into starting my own podcast. I had so many emotions around leaving teaching, and I'm very much a talk to process kind of person. And I needed a way, now that I was by myself in a home office. I didn't have teachers around me. I didn't have students around me. I needed the ability to process all this stuff that was coming up. So I first started a podcast, and then I kind of started shifting my efforts toward our actual business. And it does feel risky. It is hard, regardless of what the size of that paycheck is. It is really hard to step away from a guaranteed retirement. It's hard to step away from a guaranteed paycheck that comes in every month. It's hard to step away from those benefits like insurance. And my husband had stepped away from his job a year prior to me and got himself on solid ground. And we did a lot of work around budgeting and making sure that we were financially covered for both of us to exit our professions, because we also have a little one who's in daycare. That's expensive. And so we had to make sure that financially things were sound enough for us to give this a go for a year. Now, with that said, to kind of counteract the risk, I'm keeping my license current. So really, worst case scenario, if our entire concept of what we want our business to be with coaching and consulting really doesn't take off or go the direction that we need it to, I can go back to education. And it's a job that I would be honored to go back to. I wouldn't even be disappointed. Right now, I'm giving 100% to our business to see where it's going to go. But I also know that worst case scenario, I still go back to a job that I loved. And that helps.
Yeah, it does help. And I think that's why I also feel a little bit of security myself, because I am also working for the government and I know I have a pension. So no matter what happens, if I do fail in my business too, I can go back to my cushy job. But you say something that is really important, is that you have that backup plan. I think many people think that they have to jump into it both feet. And I hear these crazy people that sometimes are sales experts say the same thing, that if you really believe in your dream, you would jump into it with both feet. Well, part of the problem with that is if you don't have the capital lined up to do it, let alone the ability to be able to manage different types of aspects of your business and be able to do that well so that you can support it or finance it for that matter, it's not really a good idea to probably jump into the river in its current sweeping you away. So,
yeah,
good idea.
Yeah. And also, I think, too, for us, it was 10 years in the making, right? We built this side hustle starting 10 years ago. If we had started it 10 years ago and a year into owning an Airbnb, we'd been like, let's quit our jobs. Let's live off of this. That would have ended in disaster. But over time, over those 10 years, we built up to owning and managing these 6 properties. We knew the consistent income. We survived COVID with vacation rentals. We saw ourselves in weak and then thriving economies. And so we know how to write it out. We know how to look at that as a source of income now and what we can bank on and what we can't. And so to your exact point, we never would have thrown ourselves into this and quit our jobs 10 years ago. But now we had that safety and security in knowing what that business was. And yes, we're adding components where we are really unsure. But yes, we have those backup plans as well. And we have a little one with a mouth to feed and bills to pay. And so we also can't afford to just say, well, we're just going to throw caution to the wind and see where this goes.
Absolutely. And it's smart to be able to think of that, because there are not only many hands you have to worry about, but also you have to kind of gauge yourself with what you're getting yourself into, which 10 years ago, I would have never guessed that the Airbnb industry would have taken off the way it did. So with that said, I think a lot of my listeners have learned from many of my other guests on the show, which I was sharing with you earlier. We've had real estate agents that sell homes for a living. I've had people that have engaged in prospecting with all kinds of different avenues within that industry. What makes it unique to go to an Airbnb instead of, say, a hotel? In your view, what do you think you offer compared to other people? Because I think what I find appealing, why I even think it's such an important subject, is because a lot of people hear a lot of crap about, well, I don't know if I should go to Airbnb because that person has bad reviews or that person doesn't take care of their properties. I think that we've heard so much about it that sometimes we get a bad feeling or get a bad taste about what it is. What makes you, being an owner of 6 properties, really appealing? And when they hear you and ask about your job, what is usually some of the questions that they ask, if you even have a few of those that come to mind right away?
Mm-hmm. I mean, the first thing I would say about picking an Airbnb over a hotel, there are similarities. It's a roof over your head, it's a bed, it's a bathroom, it's a place that you can stay when you're visiting a location where you don't own a home or rent a home. I would say we had an advantage in setting up our Airbnbs because we had rented ourselves and we had some really bad experiences. There was one where the pipes in the bathroom were frozen because there was a hole in the wall behind the toilet. And so we couldn't even use the toilet upon arrival. There were ceiling tiles missing in the kitchen and mouse droppings. So we had some really bad experiences as renters ourselves prior to owning one. But it was honestly part of what made us want to get into it is this idea that, oh my goodness, these people are renting these houses and individuals are coming out here spending their well-earned dollars on the minimal amount of vacation time that they get to stay at this house that has frozen pipes because you can't even repair a hole in the wall, right? And we knew that we could do it better. We knew that we could offer something different. Now, the reason that we always picked home rentals over hotels is because when we go travel with our friends and family, I want to share space with them. I want a living room. I want to be able to cook together. I want to be able to sit out on a patio together. When you go stay in hotel-like situations, it doesn't mean they don't have lobbies or shared spaces like pools or things like that. They do, and that's great. But I want an all-encompassing situation where I can spend the entirety of a trip with the people that I'm traveling with, because that's why we're taking the time. We're taking the time to be together, to play board games, to do all the things. And it's a little awkward to go into people's hotel rooms to do some of those things because it's just beds. It's not set up to host big amounts of people. And so that's really what I would say as far as what do Airbnbs offer over what hotels do, is it offers you the full experience of being able to be in a place with the people that you're traveling with and do all the things. Sit down over a meal together, break bread together, play board games together, watch a movie together. And that's really what I like about Airbnbs. Now, they do get a bad rap. There are a lot of people who flooded into the industry to be hosts for quick dollars, passive income. I will be the first to tell you that it should not be a passive business. If you are viewing running your Airbnb as being passive, you're already doing something wrong. And the reason for that is homes take work. If you live in a house and you take care of your own home, you know the amount of work that comes with it. Roofs, plumbing, your appliances break, all the things. And if you're treating this as a passive business, you're going to have disappointed guests because the likelihood is that you have dated furniture, you have broken appliances, you have things that are not being cared or maintained. That is not the way that we run our business. And so just like if you're searching for a hotel to stay in for a vacation, you do need to look at reviews for Airbnb and VRBO or whatever platform you're searching for, because those are indicators of how well a host is going to take care of you when you're investing your money to stay at their property. Now, my husband and I are super hosts on Airbnb as we are on VRBO, and you earn that status through good communication, through having photos that represent what you're actually offering. That's another big thing that people always get a little weirded out by with Airbnbs, is that they see one thing in the pictures and they show up to something totally different. Again, you can't be passive and you need to be transparent. They'll book your property as is if you show them it as is and they're okay with that. And then they'll show up and they'll review you accordingly because you provided what they thought they were booking. If you don't, that's where you start to run into problems. And that's where you see a lot of people tell the horror stories of what Airbnb can lead to. I would say some of the most common questions that we get as Airbnb hosts is, how is it to manage guests? Do you have really challenging guests? And the answer to that would be yes. What I would say is 90% of our guests are incredible. They take care of our properties. They're very thoughtful. They're really good at communicating. They want to do the right thing. It's that 10% that view it as, I've paid this money to stay in your house, so now I get to do whatever I want. I get to leave piles and piles of dirty dishes upon checkout. I get to just leave trash laying around for the cleaning company to clean up after me because I paid a cleaning fee. We have had guests that refuse to leave so that you're calling the police.
Wow.
So you can have some real doozies of situations. But at the end of the day, when you're working with the 90% of the guests that you have come through your properties, if you've done the right thing as a host and you genuinely show that you're trying to do the right thing, you're providing a nice space, you're providing well-stocked kitchens, comfortable beds, nicely themed spaces, guests in general are going to take care of your property if you are also taking care of your property. So I think that that's why we don't have too many bad situations, is because the people that book our guests see that we take care of our properties, they show up and they experience that well-maintained property, and then they know that we're paying attention. I think the second most common question we're asked about our business is, how do you do it remotely? So anybody that has been in conversations with us knows that we have properties that are in states that are outside of where we live. So we have 2 in Montana, we had 2 in Arizona, we live in Minnesota, and then we have 2 that are in northern Minnesota, but it's 4.5 hours away from where we live.
Wait,
And
you have 2 properties in Arizona, although you live in the Midwest.
yes.
Wow, that has to be quite a logistical challenge.
Yeah. And that's where I say it can't be passive.
Yeah.
So we are at our properties. We do all of the maintenance quarterly. We'll be out there multiple times a year in order to open the fridge, check that the dishwasher's functioning properly, change out bedding, replace towels that are dated or are stained or things like that. And then we have really good teams that are on the ground in the locations that we manage our properties in. So we have cleaning companies locally, and we work very closely with them. They're kind of our first tier of support, I would say, in terms of reporting damage or things like that. And then we pay monthly somebody who lives locally to just be the emergency number on the fridge. So if we have a toilet backup, if we have an appliance go down, there's somebody locally that we can call that can help us problem solve, but that's all they do. And we just kind of pay them a monthly retainer, if you will, to be available to us when we need them. That's how we're able to do it remotely.
Well, when you're building an empire that you're able to do that and have people on standby. And when you're providing that excellent level of service, obviously they're not only providing what it is as a fee, they're probably tipping you, they're coming back again, checking that place out because they know they had a great experience. I mean, the whole hotel industry is built on that experience, and you're doing quite the same. You're taking some of the rules of the playbook, but you're enhancing it. And I love that. So with all that said, I want to talk about for the next few minutes about what you started to do, which is really the coaching and consulting aspect that you mentioned earlier. So your business, Wanderful, which is with an A, Field Guides, is really not only about the properties that you've just spoken about, but also helping others that are interested in doing this. So I have to ask, and I always ask my guests this because it's so fascinating to me that you want to pass this knowledge on to somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could continue to do what you're doing, Julie, you and your husband, and be able to build more and more and more, be a little selfish, be like, yeah, I got myself to feed. I want to just keep all this knowledge myself. Why teach others?
I think that that's a great question. So first and foremost, with me being a former teacher,
Yeah.
I believe in being a lifelong learner.
I knew that was going to be a walk-in answer, but I figured there has to be a little bit more to it than just that. Oh, I was because I'm a teacher.
Yeah, you perfectly set me up for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in being a lifelong learner, and I believe in sharing the knowledge that you have and something that you're good at. I believe in sharing that with other people that are interested in doing the same thing. A few years ago, what ended up happening was we had several friends, several family members, several connections of friends start to send us questions via text or email saying, how did you get your first property? How did you come up with the money for the down payment? How did you start to manage it? How did you do all this on your own? And it was in 2020 when we started getting the majority of those questions. And my husband and I just started talking and thinking, how do we start telling people all this? Because we can keep sitting down with all of these individuals in one-off dinners and different things and trying to communicate, but it's hours and hours and hours of information to give them that you can't cover in one dinner. And we can't keep doing that for all these people that we have sending us questions. And so that was really where the idea to create a course came from. And that was really where we started, was how can we design a course that teaches people how to do this? Now, what I would like to preface this with is at the time we were also seeing other people come out with coaching programs that we've seen that are influencers in the Airbnb investment space that are all over YouTube. They're all over Instagram. and they're promoting it as this passive business. They're promoting it as go into this area, go into this area, invest in this area. This one's for sure going to be a winner. And we had people that we knew that followed those influencers and followed their poor advice and really lost out. When you hear about the Airbnb bust, it's because there's so many individuals that have decided to just follow influencers in this space blindly and just take what they're saying at their word and thinking they're going to have what this person has because that's what these influencers are saying. Oh, if you just do this, right? And we really disagreed with that. It's one of the reasons I like your podcast is because it's all about authenticity. Ben and I also believe in being authentic. And we're not going to tell people that starting an Airbnb is easy. We're not going to tell people that being in an Airbnb business is passive. We're not going to tell you it's going to make you hundreds of thousands of dollars in your first year because it won't.
No,
it won't.
It won't. No, it won't.
And are there strategies that we use from 10 years ago to now that led us to be able to retire ourselves from our 9-to-5s by 40? Yes. And those are the strategies that we're going to teach, but we're not making promises. We're just showing you the spreadsheet that we use to analyze locations. We're just showing you how we created our own design boards to design our own Airbnb spaces instead of paying $10,000 on hiring designers to come into your space like so many of the influencers are telling you that you need to do right now. We did it ourselves, so we want to teach other people who want the profit in their pocket and not spending money on all these silly, excessive things that are out there right now in this space. And so that was really where we wanted to design a course that was different, a course that didn't promise anything, but provided somebody with the strategy that if they wanted to have early retirement, if they wanted supplemental income to be able to enjoy adventures, that they could work through these strategies themselves and slowly build a business that is sustainable, right? It took us 10 years to get here.
Oh, I'm soaking this all up because some of my long-term listeners haven't heard this in a while, but I'm going to say it again. It takes work.
Yes.
And coaching is not this, oh, I'm going to go in and learn something from somebody and now I'm going to be equipped for it. No, you got to follow through with it. And following through is 9/10 of the whole practice.
Yes.
If you cannot follow through, you are not an ideal client. I field my clients all the time, Julie, are these people really going to do the hard work? And I have dismissed some people where I say, you know what? It might be a hit on me financially, but it doesn't mean that I'm in it for the financial gain. I want you to come in and I want to see you be successful. That's why I'm not all into the river in the current of quitting my job, because I know that I need to build that sustainability. I need to build that brand, and you're building that brand even by doing it through these courses and even providing online content for that matter. So if someone was really serious, because you said something that's really appealing to me, is don't go with those that are already setting a viral trend or the trendsetters, because if you're following those people, you're literally just walking in their shoes and they're not necessarily providing you with your own authentic journey of actually doing this. What would you say to somebody, maybe one thing that you could recommend just to give them a little bit of a teaser of what you're sharing, that if they were interested in starting something of this type of venture, whether it's Airbnb, whether it's a rental property, because it's sort of related, anything in that sort of realm, what would you recommend to somebody just starting out if they're really trying to figure out if it's a good fit? What's one thing that they could do?
I think one thing that they could do is figure out what financial options they have available. So there are some individuals out there that are really great at saving, and they have a pool of money where they want to know what to do with it. And they want to make sure that if they're going to invest in a particular area, that they're investing right. But there are also other people out there who say, I want that rental property. I want that Airbnb, but I don't know how to get to the money involved with having a down payment for the Airbnb. There are a lot of options out there for people. You can talk with other friends or family members that may be interested in pooling financial resources, right? There are companies out there where you can talk to them about what it is that you're hoping to get into. And there are people that will give you personal loans in order to be able to go in and invest if you can show that that's a great strategy. There are options where you can do, it's new to the space, but co-hosting. So you could tell somebody that you want to get paid to help them co-host a property that's in your area. You start to generate a little bit of income from that, and then you eventually go out and buy your own property. So I would say the first big step is getting real with yourself about where you're at with your financials. What options do you have available, and researching those first? And that is one of the things that we cover in the first few modules of our course, is how to understand getting yourself to that first one, because it's always the hardest. But the first one that we invested in, although that was really hard to come up with the down payment for us, we ended up doing a home equity loan on the house that we lived in. That was how we were able to garner enough income for that first one. After that, though, the first one, the income that came in off of that, because we saved it, paid for the second. And then the second paid for the third. And then the third paid for the fourth. And then the fourth paid for the fifth. The fifth paid for the sixth. And it goes from there. So it's all about figuring out where you're at realistically financially for that first one, and figuring out how you can get creative around your options. Going to that uncle that has loads of money and asking for a personal loan and coming up with terms and repayment options or things like that. Get creative, because after that first one, if you've invested in the right location and the right property for that location, it's going to pay to build after that.
That's so much sound advice right there, because I'm always about reinvesting in my business. I'm not necessarily paying myself, which is important, but I want to also invest in new tools, new technologies, new things that are able to help not just myself, but also my clients in order for my business to thrive. And it sounds like you're doing the same by building more properties, being able to invest in what you have existing. And those are all important. Julie, I have this final question for you.
Yes.
Do you feel creative now as a result of doing this? Because right towards the end, you said something about being able to have the creativeness to come up with new ideas and new aspirations for doing that financial stream of income. Do you feel that you're living that creative life as a result of doing this?
Yeah. Actually, surprisingly, in a lot of different facets of my life, I feel that this has brought a lot more creativity. As a teacher, I always tried to be creative with the content and the way that I was delivering materials to my students. So that's always been a part of who I have been anyways. I have to be able to channel some of that creative desire in me and put it into something that I'm doing. And now I'm seeing that come out a lot in my business with the way that we're designing this online course. So the way I'm teaching the lessons, or the way that I'm creating the PDFs that go along with my lessons. I'm seeing it in our personal life. We love traveling. That was our whole reason for starting an Airbnbs. We're getting really creative on how we can work remotely and travel at the same time and have our kid with us and still be able to work. And so my creative juices are flowing, and we have so many more ideas of what we would like to do to scale this business. But I'm trying to keep a little bit of a lid on the pot right now and finish this course first, and tell myself, like, whoa, Julie, don't get too ahead of yourself. Finish the course. It's 8 modules. I'm done with 5 out of 8. So I'm like, okay, just get to the end of the 8 modules, and then you can start to explore the ebook. Then you can start to explore different programs or offerings that you can do for consulting. So yeah, the creative juices are all over the place over here.
I'm going to take an audio cut of this, and I'm going to send it to you a year from now and be like, look how much you've done because of all of that opportunity to be creative. So I love that. Thank you for sharing all that. I want to give you the last few minutes, Julie, to talk to our audience here about Wanderful Field Guides. Can you let us know how they can reach out to you if they're interested in learning a little bit more about this experience? Maybe they want to be coached by your husband and you. Maybe they want to find out a little bit more information about this course that you're developing. Maybe you could give us just some tidbits that will help us as we close out. So I'll give you those last few minutes.
Yeah, great. The best place for people to find us on social media would be at Wanderful Rentals. We have a presence on Facebook and we have a presence on Instagram. And so you can reach out to us there, message us, DM me, and ask questions. If you want to know more, that's the best place to find us and some of our content. I have already put a lot of free content out on Instagram. We have a short e-guide. We have different collections of links, like if you want to outfit your vacation rental. And that information is all accessible through Instagram. Wanderfulfieldguide.com is our website, and that is where you can learn more information about the course itself. It's an 8-module course. It's self-paced. It's online. It takes you from, I don't have a rental at all, and I want to know how to get one, to how do I secure a loan with a bank or credit union, to how do I submit an offer that will hopefully be accepted on a house. And then it goes through staging and communicating with guests. It gives you binder templates to include in your rental. It gives you communication templates to send to your guests. It talks to you about curating property managers and cleaning companies and all the things. So that's our course. It's 8 modules. It's taught by my husband and myself. And then separately, you could pay for consulting. So the consulting side of our business is really to help people specifically with their needs. Our hope is that somebody would use the course first to save themselves money. As you know, consulting at an hourly rate costs a lot more. Going through our 8-module course will help you save money on understanding a lot of those basics. And then our hope after that is that then people will spend the dollars for the consulting hours to then talk with us about their specific needs, their specific property, a specific location that they're thinking about investing. If they use our investment spreadsheet to determine if a location's right for them, it's about then sitting down and saying, all right, are we analyzing this location properly? Is it going to give you the results that you want? That sort of thing. So that is what we're hoping for from our course. And modules 1 through 4 are done. They're out there. That is the piece that you would purchase if you don't have an Airbnb at all. And then modules 5 through 8 are still to come. And that is really, I have an Airbnb and now what do I do with it?
Julie, that's so awesome what you're doing, and just having all that available to people, and even saying, hey, don't spend hundreds of dollars. Let's do it with ways in which we can make it that you can learn a lot from just the course and be able to teach yourself. But what I find really fascinating, and I'm literally taking this from your website, is that you're homegrown and you're doing it with the things that are necessary for you to grow not only as a small business, but you're learning along the way and you're teaching others, which you're putting your teaching degree still to work. So all of that was not for naught, and you definitely are making an impact. And for all those reasons, Julie, thanks for being on Speaking from the Heart today. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I enjoyed learning a little bit more about the Airbnb industry. Now I'm not as afraid anymore, and maybe, just maybe, you're giving me more of a reason to finally go out to Montana, the Midwest, or even beyond and explore Airbnb. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure to chat with you today.
I want to thank Julie again so much for sharing her interesting perspective on how you can grow a business from not only a crazy idea, but to make it a full-time job, a full-time living, if you will, not only to retire herself, but also her husband, and enjoying these properties that they have now and interacting with people all across the globe, having people stay with them in a variety of areas and places that they would have otherwise only been able to explore in books and other adventures that maybe they had with other friends. Especially with Julie herself working as a teacher, that now she's being able to go from the classroom into helping others learn how to develop their own Airbnb business. This is one of those episodes that, as we continue to wrap up this year, I'm really excited about the stories that we have of our guests about opportunities like these. And you're going to hear a lot more of these, especially as we wrap up this year. But what I love about Julie's story today is where we can enjoy being on the sidelines, being in the moment of being involved with all these different opportunities that we've been keeping at a distance. We're pushing them away, being risk averse. But now, instead of being risk averse, she's diving into those opportunities. She's diving into things that would have otherwise not been able to have been done. But all it took was a risk. And you might find it funny because you're saying to yourself, I'm sure, Josh, that makes no sense. You have to take risk to avoid risk? And the answer is yes, absolutely. It's something that even I myself have had to learn. Because where we can enjoy life in the moment, where we're at right now, isn't just about the opportunities that are facing us, that are ahead, what might exist if we try to work on that crazy idea. It really starts with that crazy idea and then keeping that momentum, pushing that idea, and making it come alive. Making it exist is something that for most people, trying to turn that switch over is the most difficult of all aspects, which even for me, I have to admit, being able to overcome that stereotypical limited belief thinking that we often have because we're stuck in our fear, we're stuck in the way in which we're not able to move forward, means that we have to understand how we can overcome that. We don't want to feel less in a role because we want to give more in that role as a whole. So shifting is essentially what we heard in Julie's story today of what it was required to start feeling more comfortable, to feeling more engaged, to actually changing that mindset and turning us into a completely different direction. But we have to live in a life that allows us to experience these situations. It has to propel us and force us to experience that change. And sometimes that change can be the most challenging thing that we could ever experience, even if we loved what we were doing. Julie even admitted teaching is something that she always liked. It's something that gives back. But it was not giving enough of her time and resources back. So that when this idea came to start having all these different rentals, that is when the whole shift, that whole perspective started to turn. Where can we be all encompassing in terms of us being individuals in order to have that quote unquote full experience that we have in our life? Maybe Julie's story today even appeals to you. Maybe it's something that you want to start diving into, and I highly encourage you. Reach out to her. If it's something that is a bit more tangible, maybe it's just starting slow, reach out to me. There's enough wealth to go around in terms of all the information that we can work on to help you get to where you want to be. But the other aspect of this is what Julie might not provide, or even what I might not provide. Because let's face it, in order to create that change, it comes in different dimensions. It comes from different perspectives of our story, and being able to shape and mold it, almost like Play-Doh, into a shape or form that we really can enjoy in terms of that full experience. It's helping us as individuals come to grips, come to the realization that we can provide something and contribute to the greater whole. But it often means that we have to work on ourselves in order to create that best value in our lives. It does mean that we have to take a risk. We have to be determined in that risk through having that confidence in all those relationships that we're building up to that point to be able to keep moving that forward. But I think there was something else that she addressed today that is really important to acknowledge. Many people think that building a passive income means that it is an opportunity to take a step back and not have to do much with it. A little tweaking here, a little tweaking there, everything will be just fine. But I think that you still have to work even harder, maybe just as much as you might be working a full-time job, in order for that passive income to be developed. There's no way in society that you are able to sit back and enjoy. And even if millionaires and billionaires tell you a completely different story, the truth of the matter is that they still had to put in that hard work. It doesn't mean that there's some sort of magic formula that essentially when you listen to it or you read about it or you do exactly what they say, it will come to reality. The truth is, and maybe might be even a myth buster of sorts, is that you, yourself, have to create that opportunity. You have to find that magic formula within your own confines. Not everybody is built equally. And even then, if you are built equally, there are still different nuances, different paths that you took to get to where you are today. So that hard work does apply. It doesn't mean that you have to be passive about it. It doesn't mean that you think that this income, this money that will help you to survive, will always come flowing in. Julie even admitted herself. They are traveling around making sure that these properties are okay, even with the people that they enlist. You have to take care of them just as much as they will be able to take care of you. And part of that is being able to share that knowledge, share that depth that you're able to provide, and make no promises that things are going to happen at the very end. Let's be real. I don't believe in these gimmicks of saying that after 8 weeks, everything about you is going to change. If we start making things time finite, then that will never allow us to be able to grow. We'll always be time indefinite on working on all those things because it takes hard work. It takes hard work to not only change yourself, but change that mindset to even do some of the things that you never thought you could possibly do. Even if you thought that there are so many different financial options to choose from, you have to research them carefully. There are some things that even when you start to invest in, you'll start to realize that even all those aspects that they said to you that will make it so easy, so plain Jane, so easy for us to keep on moving forward into, that you still realize that when you get started, the work is so terribly hard to accomplish. Therefore, you have to not just research your options that you have, but you have to be creative at the same time. Starting Your Speaking Voice LLC has been something of a gift for me. I've had so many experiences working with other entrepreneurs, learning about the mistakes of other people in a variety of other capacities, even in my own formal education, that allowed me to start what I have started. And it's been going great. Are there tough days, especially for being an entrepreneur and trying to manage the variety of different demands that it has? Absolutely. But by no means am I criticizing, condemning, or complaining about any of it whatsoever. Because I know that when I walked into it, it was going to be a lot of hard work. It was going to mean a lot of sacrifice, pushing ourselves into a completely different direction as a whole. And when I say we, I mean not just myself, but the people that are alongside me on this journey. But I realize that building a passive income, being able to live in this lifestyle that I have now, means that I had to start with a crazy idea of actually opening yet another coaching business that might have already been done and people might be very much successful in. But I know that I can bring a value and a perspective that other people are missing in their lives. But I have that determination. I know what it means to keep moving that needle forward in my own life. But I challenge you and even ask you, are you able to understand what that needle looks like that you're moving in the first place? And if you don't, and if you think that being more risk averse is going to make you happy, especially when it comes to finding an income, you are wrong. You are absolutely wrong. And I hate saying that, but it is so true. Because I realized that after I got this freedom of knowing that I have the ability to create all these different avenues in my life, I was able to take that freedom and keep moving forward. Freedom is not defined by one common principle. It's defined by all the things that we are working on. And even if that means getting more time back, being able to work on yourself or work with others, is totally your choice. But I'm telling you, there's no such thing in life as being able to get away scot-free. You have to put in the hard work. But I promise you, just like Julie said, if you're able to take care of others, they'll take care of you. And that's the deepest, kindest type of respect that you could ever get. Especially if you know that swindling, stealing, or any other sort of negative perception or activity against somebody else is not going to get you to where you want to be. So be a teacher, not just in the literal sense, but be a teacher in a way in which you're teaching others to shift their perspectives, learn how they can start their own skill development and building towards that common goal, but also finding that research, reviewing it carefully, and being creative. Because when you're creative and you allow yourself to have that opportunity to freely think about things outside of all the things that you're told otherwise, I promise you, not only will you get all the things that Julie has obtained, not only will you get all the things that I am enjoying even right now and continuously building up to, but you'll start having a different appreciation and a deeper appreciation for what you can potentially become. It doesn't happen in the passive sense. It happens in the active sense. And if you're ready to start that journey, not only is it going to be a crazy idea for you to walk away from all the things that you were once told, but you're going to enjoy something that you never thought you would ever enjoy. And for that, I'm so happy for you that you found that perspective. Thanks for listening to episode number 148 of Speaking from the Heart, and I look forward to hearing from your heart very soon.
Thanks for listening. For more information about our podcast and future shows, search for Speaking from the Heart to subscribe and be notified wherever you listen to your podcasts. Visit us at www.yourspeakingvoice.biz for more information about potential services that can help you create the best version of yourself. See you next time.